Hello everybody, who's actually pretty much nobody because I'm just getting started. This is going to be chapter 3 of Save the Pearls, and there's 2 changes from my last video. First, I'm only doing 1 chapter because the last video turned out a bit longer than I'd like it. And secondly, I read this chapter ahead of time in hopes that I would stumble over my words less, which doesn't seem to be working, but screw it. And I'm kind of glad I did because not only does it go into more detail with the blackface aspect of the story at the end of the chapter, it also briefly mentions suicide at the beginning, so if either of those things may bother you, just be forewarned. Exiting the lab, Eden passed directly into the security area, her nerves jangling. A glass cage shut around her with a bang that always made her shudder. To control the spread of disease, no one was permitted to enter any area of the combs without inspection. And the terrifying possibility of being cooped up in quarantine never failed to enter her mind as she waited to be released. Rumors of what was done to sick people in the name of research filled her with dread. She peered through the glass wall at the dark, masculine robot behind the scanner. I'm sorry, I feel like I know what the author means, but it just sounds stupid, and it gets worse. It was a classic prototype of the ruling class, from its mahogany-colored casing right down to its superior attitude. Okay. It was so real it intimidated Eden. Eden's a wiener. I don't like her. She's a lot of other things too. She tensed as it studied the information that the chips in her head projected into the air. Medical history, genetic modifications, predisposition to disease, and any current illnesses. Let them look. Them is like always italicized in here. It is not only gross, it's just stupid and unnecessary. It doesn't work with the flow of the sentence or anything. Neither does the entire book, but they would never know anything about the real Eden Newman. For some reason, real is capitalized. The isn't, but okay. Only Jamal saw her. Straight people. Soon the door slid open. Actually, straight person, because I don't really know. I mean, he seems to be defending her and stuff, but I can't imagine he'd be all that into her just because she's a dick. But okay. Soon the door slid open and Eden trudged towards the employees' quarters. Cones of dim light fell on the concrete pathways. Even here she couldn't escape Bramford's colossal ego. Like an animal, he had marked his territory by carving a ridiculously large initial B onto each unit door. Wait, did he carve them individually, or did he, order them? Because that's not even ego, that's just dedication. His audacious company logo, a snow-capped black mountain against a red desert background that offered false hope in a parched land, glowed at intervals along the walls, as if he owned everything, including her. Is his logo branded on you? Did he carve a bee into your face? All over again, she felt the burn of her unjust dismissal. The hatred etched onto the faces of her coworkers pressed into her memory. You were being pretty hateful to them. I mean, come on. The walls, painted a refreshing mint color that suggested coolness, began to close in around her. Sweat drilled down the sides of her face. Drilled? That's odd. I like unusual descriptions of things, but that one just makes no sense to me. Okay. Her world band voice gently warned her, "My dear, your oxy levels are in the red zone." The Unigov called oxy the happy drug. Sorry, I had to hold the book. Which seemed absurd since everyone knew happiness had gone the way of the dolphins. Maybe that's why you need drugs. Just, you know what? I mean, so do I, but the full dose Eden had taken at 1,800 hours should have kept her on an even keel throughout her 12-hour work shift. But the extra stress had pushed her over the edge. Already she felt the telltale dryness in her mouth, the jittery shakes and terrible cravings. She hurried around the last turn to her unit, her body growing heavier by the second. The door sprung open as the scanner cleared her ID chip. She rushed inside and heard a loud, happy bark. "Gotta get some, buddy," she muttered to her dog. I love dogs, but I want to free the dog from this terrible book. Big and energetic with yellow-gray fur, Austin knocked a plastic chair on its side as he turned to follow her. The cramped four-room unit was too small for him. Neither one of us fit, do we? I'm sorry, that just cracks me up. That's so dramatic. I don't know. Eden raked a hand down his back. That's also weird phrasing. That sounds painful. Honestly, I think of Blackfish and the orcas raking each other with their teeth, but still, that's just not a very pleasant... I don't know, maybe she's just scratching him or something. Eden raked a hand down his back on her way towards her small, narrow bedroom. He patted behind her, the sound of his panting breath growing loud in her ears. She shoved a thin board off the berth-like bed, which also served as a desk, and it banged onto the concrete floor. Trembling, she lay down and pulled the oxy cap from its storage unit above her. The soft, molded apparatus fit over her head. As it clicked into place, a tiny syringe slid out from its sleeve into the receptacle in her scalp. Ew. She flicked the dosage to high, a low moan escaping her. Hurry, Eden thought, desperate for the soft, numb kick to begin. I want to give her a soft, numb kick. That wasn't very threatening. For comfort, she called up her favorite spot, Sequoiadendron giganteum. At once, an ancient redwood forest appeared, the giant trees towering over her like wise old sentinels that offered protection, even affection. At least, that's how her brain had been programmed to experience the hollow images. A cheerful pair of bluebirds flitted past her. The calming mood scent of fresh damp grass seeped from a port in the wall. She shed her shoes and rustled her feet against fallen, brittle leaves. I don't think that's how holograms work, but okay. At last, the familiar, pleasant rush flooded into her body. Her world slowly turned a muted shade of gray. Possibly she wouldn't kill herself tonight. Okay, wow. I don't even have anything to say. That's just wow. That was until an ethics officer signaled an incoming visit. Oh, yeah, now she's gonna... Before Eden could pull herself together, the shimmering hollow image of a female EO appeared in front of her. Naturally, she was a Cole and wore the distinctive red jacket of the Ethics Corps. Eden Lavinia Newman, Zone 4, Caucasian, the officer said without great interest. Yes, officer? Eden scrambled to sit up. She flashed on the date, the 29th of May, her half-birthday. For Earth's sake, how could she have forgotten? This is your official 6-month warning, the EO said. Do you realize you'll be 18 years old on November 29th? Yes, I do. And are you aware that your basic resources will be stopped unless you mate by that date? Yes, Eden whispered, terrified by the thought of being cut off from food and oxy. What did you say? Yes, I said yes, officer. So her mate rate makes it hard to mate by her mate date. We cannot afford to supply precious resources to those who do not contribute to the continuation of our species. Her lifespan flashed and Eden's official entry on the Unigov mating site began to play. Eden cringed at her paltry 15% mate rate in the unflattering images of her. She had worn an extra thick coat of midnight luster that day, though her race was still obvious. Right there, for the whole world to see, underneath the recording of her talking about herself, something she had dreaded almost as much as having her face shown. 'Cause she's a bitch. It read, Caucasian female. Her other vital statistics, including date of birth, height, weight, and genetic markers, were also listed, but nothing damned her more than being a pearl. The officer muted the recording and directed her condescending gaze at Eden. Why did you have to play the thing? It seems like some sort of clumsy exposition dump that would be used in a movie adaptation, but it's in a book and it's weird. I hope there never is a movie adaptation. I see your mate rate is below average, she said. How does anyone say that with a straight face? And yet, a few of your kind have offered to pick up your option. Tell me, Eden Newman, why have you refused them? Eden knew they didn't really care whether or not she reproduced. Truth was, they wished her dead. The EO simply needed to check her name off a list. Was it the low level of oxy in Eden's system, or her lingering anger over Bramford's lies that drove her to speak her mind for once in her life? She's spoken her mind a few times already, honestly, and she just said the level of oxy was increasing, so I don't know. Because I don't want my child to be all pearl. I'd rather be dead than mate with one of my kind. Well, guess what, honey? That's exactly what's going to happen. Like, that's literally what they're going to do. They're going to leave you outside in the heat to die. And I'd be glad if that really happened, but it's not going to. Just a guess. Even as she said it, she cursed herself for taking such a foolish risk. I see, the officer said coldly. She sees so cold. We suggest you attempt to improve your rating by following the Universal Government Standard recommendations. This warning has been duly noted. Okay. With that, she disappeared. Eden fell back on the bed, groaning. The Unigov's recommendations, which included banal instructions such as how to respond to suitors or keep up one's hygiene, would never help her. For Earth's sake, she only had to do whatever it took to win over Jamal. He was her only chance. So she made it sound like he liked her back. It sounded like he liked her back. But now it sounds like she wants to use him as a tool. Not really to advance her social standing, because she can't do that. But she views him as like this tool she's going to try and seduce him to not die. And I mean, yeah, not dying is good, generally speaking. But it just strikes me the wrong way. Austin licked her hand, and she turned a lazy eye towards him. Oh, buddy, what are we going to do? The dog doesn't have to worry. Dog. The whitish eyebrows arched, his wagging tail thumped the wall like a metronome in sympathetic time. Somehow he understood, just like a real sibling would. It says, later on, like the next page, it says siblings are forbidden, so I'm not exactly sure what the function of a sibling is. Like, how she knows exactly what it's supposed to be like. And I don't think siblings are supposed to lick your hands. And this is saying this as someone with siblings. But I'm just going on a weird tangent, as I do. Eden glanced at a small photo of her mother that sat on a shelf. It was the only personal effect in the drab room besides the dusty old books of poems her mother had given her. At least she had been right about Austin. Eden had been skeptical when her mother brought the shivering creature home 10 years ago. How dare you? It's a dog. Love the dog. On bended knee, her mother had peeled back the blanket from the bundle in her arms. Eden vividly recalled the shock of seeing a live animal and how she'd reeled off facts as if they were weapons that could protect her. Canis lupus familiaris, a subspecies of lupus or wolf. It's a male. The webbed paws belong to the retriever family. They're excellent swimmers. It's commonly called a yellow Labrador, Mother. Those aren't that big of dogs. I mean, I guess she's in a tiny space, though. He's just a puppy, Eden. Why don't you pet him? Eden had reached tentatively for the scrawny, whimpering thing, but hesitated. Go ahead, you won't hurt him. Ooh. No interlife samplings could have prepared Eden for the softness of real fur. The Labrador had looked at her with wide, begging eyes, his tail wagging at her touch. She'd realized he liked her touch, and since only Mother, and, in those days, even Father, ever looked right at her or occasionally touched her, she'd decided that the scrawny little dog must be family, too. What's his name? How about Austin? Like Emily's brother? Is that a dog's name? Well, why not? If you had a brother, I would have named him Austin. This woman's, like, obsessed with Emily Dickinson. You'll see. It's kind of weird. Eden loved old tales about siblings. One child was the allowable quota if the mated couple produced enough unicredits. And like most kids, she never knew her grandparents, who had died, either from the heat or the toxic environment, long before she was born. Can I just say, I get that there can be, like, conflicting ideas in the system, especially if they have limited resources, which I'm not sure if they do. I mean, I assume they would in, like, a dystopian setting, but, at the same time, they're saying you have to mate by 18 or you'll die. You have to continue your family, but they're also saying you can only have one kid, but they also want pearls to die out anyway. I don't know, I just don't get it. To increase the size of their family, her optimistic mother had adopted her favorite poet, Emily Dickinson, as an ancestor. Eden and her mother had spent many hours in Emily's World, the world-banned destination where the Dickinson family lived in the 1900s. When Eden's mother started to refer to her as Aunt Emily, Eden simply had accepted it. And so she'd also embraced the dog's name. Hi, Austin. Did you see his ears wiggle? He likes you. Is he a pearl? He's a dog. Her mother had hung her head on her chest and sighed. Like that. Even now, Eden winced at the memory of her mother's red roots. A pink pearl, she was fairer than Eden, and therefore even more susceptible to the heat, which she had been lax about coating. Minor rebellions keep the heart alive, she would say. Austin is colorblind, Eden. He responds to love and kindness. Remember what Aunt Emily said? That love is all there is all we know of love. Promise me you won't forget. Love is like a gentle wind that will open your heart if you let it. Even at the age of 7, Eden knew love was dead. Only biological instinct and evolutionary climbing mattered, but it was useful to argue with her starry-eyed mother. I promise. And yet, when her mother died 3 years later, Eden had forgotten about Emily's world, along with useless ideas of love and that gentle wind. She couldn't think about it any more. And now, time for her boyfriend. Eden checked the time. Jamal would arrive in a few hours, and she had to be perfect. Let's eat, buddy, she said, stowing the oxycap. The redwood forest spread into the tiny main room as she entered it. A sparkling ray of sunshine fell across a utilitarian trio of chairs. Built into one wall, a compact kitchenette contained several chutes from which their daily supplies were dropped. Eden switched on Austin's nutrient treat, and he began to suck hungrily on it. Then she twisted the knob on a small chute, and out popped a perfectly balanced meal, 3 pills in varying proportions: white carbohydrate, blue protein, and red fat. She dug into a drawer where she had stashed her father's extra pills. He often skipped meals, which, along with his genetics, made him rail thin. If Eden weren't careful, she'd be just as skinny and even less desirable. She swapped out the blue pill for a red one and swallowed all 3 with her allotted amount of water. A nice family meal, she thought, patting Austin. Time for her mandatory half-hour of exercise. She began to run in place through the forest, though her sensors gave her the impression of moving fast. As usual, Austin rested in the shade. Hollow images of tree trunks and limbs brushed through her long, lithe frame. With each step, she focused on a single image, a white dot on her forehead. Safely mated, she quietly repeated. The dot grew larger in her mind until a blinding whiteness was all she could see. Well done, dear. Your heart rate is 110 beats per minute. You've burned 200 calories and added 0.001% muscle. Muscle adds curves, right, buddy? She said as she came to a stop. I really don't. Austin made a snuffling sound and followed her to the tidy little bathroom. Another thing, lithe has, really, in my mind at least, it has a positive connotation, and then she's complaining about not being curvy enough, and it's weird. She peeled off her lab uniform and stepped into the cleansing stall with growing dread. At once, a purple laser washed over her. Each day she expected to hear the high-pitched beep that signaled a diseased mole, an indication of the heat. Funny, they were once called beauty marks. Eden heaved a sigh of relief as the laser stopped without a sound. She'd made it through another night. Now, the good stuff, she thought, dialing in a fresh coating of midnight luster. Her spirits lifted as her skin and hair darkened to a lustrous shade of black. Water would cause the coating to streak, which was easy enough to avoid in her dry, tunneled world, and in a few days the coat would turn dull and gray, a dead giveaway she was a pearl. But for now, she looked beautiful. I really, really doubt that. Eden stepped out of the stall, refreshed and ready to deal with Jamal. She slipped on a vintage black nightgown and studied herself in the mirror. If only she had more curves. Still, the silky garment was sexy and well worth every unit credit it cost. She had almost smiled the night she picked it up at her local station in the Combs. Almost, but not quite, because she's stupid. And boring. It wasn't a nightgown, it was a weapon. Okay. One she had saved for a very special occasion. Like tonight, please, Earth. Applying her makeup, Eden expertly shaded her face to appear coal-like. She refreshed the brown caps in her eyes with darkening drops. Red lipstick, smoothed over the lines to make her lips seem fuller, was the last touch. She let her long black hair dip over one eye and smiled. Definitely passing, right? No, and that's the end, and this book is terrible. But thanks for watching.